So what you just saw was the addition of kind of a feature part of this garden that I've actually been working on, and I haven't shared much about this. You might have seen little clips of it in some of the garden strolls or when we were planting a couple of things that were here, but this is sort of a shady corner of the garden. Now there was a bench here, and that bench was really old and falling apart, and in fact last year when we had a tree removed from right over here, I think they moved it, and when the tree guys moved it, and when they picked it up, it just sort of fell apart. So bench needed replacing, and we went with this one, which I'm really liking, the backless bench here. I think it really is inviting, and it's also why I put this origami Japanese, Korean Japanese maple hybrid back here behind me. So this actually matches in that it's also teak. The two big planters that we have on the deck, and they all came from the same place. It's Country Casual Teak, and they have real teak. You got to be careful. Sometimes people advertise things as teak or teak-like, and so they're not teak, so they won't last as long and they won't age as well. And that's what I love about teak. I love how it grays out and ages. So we won't treat this in any way. We're just going to let this gray out. We might clean it every once in a while with a teak cleaner, but we're not going to oil it or finish it in any way. Anyway, let me show you around this part of the garden before I show you sort of what else is going to happen underneath here. Okay, so this whole extension here started because I decided we needed to get some new landscape lighting. I have always hated the lights that were here. Some people liked them. I never did. So one of the things that was really strange about them is, well, because none of this was garden when we first bought this, there were 3 lights along the driveway here. And by the way, these lights are only lights to have people figure out where the edge of the driveway is so they don't drive off of it. It's not really to actually provide like walking lighting, if that makes any sense. And because we added these gardens, they were all kind of floating out there. But the last one was over here. We've got a bunch of flags in the ground there marking it. And that one was always just stuck in the middle of the lawn, which I thought was so weird. And so we never changed that lighting because I couldn't figure out how to make any lighting look right when some of it's in a garden and some of it's in the lawn. And then it took me way too many years to figure out just make it part of the garden. So what I did was, well, you can see over here, this garden used to curve around like this. So what I did was I basically just created this triangle here so that all the lights for the driveway will be there. And then in the process of doing that, I worked on this edge of the bed. Again, I have redone this edge so many times. And I kept measuring it from, I wanted to sort of mimic the circle garden that's right here, which is really an oval. And I kept measuring it, and the measurements would be right, but it never looked right. And so I think because it really drops off here quite a bit, I think visually it wasn't looking right, even though the measuring tape said it was right. So there's a woodpecker. This was a case where I'm like, what matters is what your eye sees, not the measuring tape. So I redid this edge again. So let me explain how this bed kind of works here. So this corner here, the idea is, now I need to edge to make it clearer, but it sort of wraps around the house here. Then it comes to this point here, and then the edge goes around like this, mimicking visually the edge of the circle garden there. Everything you see here where there's not a plant, that's where I've extended the edge out, and I removed all of that sod by hand, and it was every bit as terrible as you think it was. And so we pulled this out here, and then as we come this way, of course, this is where the bed fell away, and so we went up here so that we can incorporate that light that I'm talking about in there. Well, a couple of them actually. This also was a dramatic drop off from the driveway, so I wanted to fill that in a little bit. So a lot of the sod that I removed, I flipped over upside down and put in here, and then we put compost over the top of it because I just want to fill up some of that. That didn't need to be all compost there. I feel like this is such a no-brainer, and I probably should have done this ages ago. I think the whole garden looks a lot better here. And a lot of this actually stemmed from the fact that we had a tree removed over here just to, you can see the stump there, to the left of where we planted the Northwind maple there. This really opened this area up visually. Honestly, there's a little bit more sun, but also it was a spruce that was basically dead. And there was just a trunk there that was really corrupting this area. So I feel like this whole area reads much airier and nicer now. And then of course we planted this origami maple here, which really kind of stops your eye. It does help create sort of a visual block to the house behind it, even though you can still see the house behind you. There's something that stops your eye. And this, to me, where we stuck this bench, was really just a natural spot for to sort of draw you into the garden. So one of the reasons that I picked this curved bench for this area instead of a straight bench is, even though this curve does not match the curve of the bed line, obviously, for some reason it felt way more appropriate in this area to me than a straight bench would have been. I feel like, I don't know what it is, I feel like there's something a little cozier about this. But obviously I set it inside the garden. So what you saw me there was leveling it, which was a total pain in the butt, by the way. So obviously what we did was we just took chunks of flagstone we had sitting around and set it on top of those. So that obviously we could keep it level, and we didn't want the legs sinking into the soil. And then because you need to feel welcome to walk into here, I put out some flagstones at the ground here. This was just some that I had from my collection. I was hoping we had some bluestone left, actually. But I just grabbed, we've got a pile of stones that we've collected over the years. So I just put a few of those in here. And now really what's left is to plant this area. Now, I have ideas for some of this, but not all of it. In some cases, I'm going to just extend what's in this bed. So I'm just going to plant more of the same thing and just bring it out to the edges to make this feel much more cohesive. In this corner over here, though, we're going to do something else. So I have a knack for showing you areas when they're not really in the exposure they are in most of the day. This is, I believe, mostly sun, I think. It's always hard to tell when you're planting things before things are leafed out, but this area gets pretty much full sun until, I think, typically midday. So I count that as mostly sun. But obviously, as we go farther in, there's shade. And then ironically, the area that I consider to be quite shady is actually in full sun right now. So go figure. So obviously we have this beautiful blue globe spruce here, which is sort of the anchor of this. Now, keep in mind what we have going on across the way here in terms of plants. I've got a whole area here of Haas halo, and I think it's pinky pollen ring hydrangeas over here. Then we have some skylight better boxwoods, and then I did just add this Jodello hemlock there. So what we're going to do is, what I like to do when we're talking about different sides of paths, and I guess in this case driveways, is I like to marry the two by repeating some of those plants. So we're going to bring in some boxwoods. They will probably not be the skylights, but I'm going to bring in a trio of boxwoods right in this area here. Down here, and of course boxwoods can really handle, you know, a wide range of sun exposures, so they should be good there for sure. I'm also going to bring in a minimum of one Haas halo hydrangea. Here's one over here. I'm going to bring in at least one, but possibly three. I don't have it in me to do two, but I'm thinking like a boxwood there, and there, or I don't know, we'll figure it out. And then maybe a trio of Haas halos here, which would not only sort of create a nice block along the driveway, but also, like I said, marries the other side of the driveway with it. Then I've got other plants to go in here. I've got some things already. And like I said, we'll be extending some of these really pretty plants that are in here out a little bit. We've got some really beautiful epimediums you can see there, some hostas. I won't probably be adding hostas. I will definitely be incorporating some more Hackalacloa in here, probably just by division of what I already have. I haven't bought any more. And then I thought one of the things I might do, I don't think it's blooming, I don't think it's really up yet that you can see, but let's go over here and I'll just see if there's any you can take a peek at. Well, a little bit here. It's actually popping into the... So this here is Blue Zinger Carex. It's a little bit aggressive, and in fact, some places won't even sell it in some parts of the country because it gets too aggressive. And actually, I could take this whole clump from right here. I find it to be pretty, it does a good job covering the grass. You can see it's all going through here, or covering the ground. So what I thought was maybe I could incorporate a bit of that over here to help bring that blue from the moonstone over to here. I can also bring some of the Hackalacloa over there. So this part will, it's unusual for me not to have a plan mapped out. That's not usually how I roll. I usually like to have a plan drawn up and know exactly what's going where. Not so much in this case, but what I do have is what is going to go underneath this bench. So behind this bench, we'll just talk about what's happening behind it. First of all, this is all Canadian ginger. Fabulous ground cover. I love it. I just found somebody recently who doesn't love it, which is fine. It's just one of those things. Ground covers are always controversial because one person's ground cover is, like, for instance, Lily of the Valley, which you see popping up over there, is another person's dreaded thug. In this case, I like the Canadian ginger. It's quite tall, though. You know, it's a good ground cover, but you know these get big leaves on it, and it's on the taller side. Back here, we also have things like we've got some hellebores. You can see those. We've got Solomon's seal here. This is a beautiful hosta coming up called Dawn's Really Light, which will fill up this whole area. There is a Hackalacloa right there that I think actually I will pull. This is an Aureola one. I think I'll pull that out from that area and bring it out here to the front, actually, so it's not hiding back there. And a whole bunch of ferns. We've got maidenhair ferns back there. This is some type of Japanese painted fern. You know, the ferns are hiding right now because they're dark and just unfurling. So what we're going to do here for this bench is I am going to plant, actually, European ginger. So what we're going to do for this bench, actually, is plant European ginger under it and around it. Now, I had considered adding in a very frothy Carex in this as well. I might still do that to just change up the texture a little bit. But for now, I'm going to start with this European ginger. And European ginger is different from Canadian ginger in that the leaves are smaller. It's a little bit less aggressive too, by the way. The leaves are smaller, but they're shiny. They unfold really nicely. I have it in a lot of places in the garden. It happens to be a ground cover I rely on quite a bit. So my plan here is I've got 18 of them. I'm going to dot them around underneath here and around here. And if I want to work in another plant to mix it up a little bit, I can. Now this soil has been thoroughly worked and compost added and a fair amount of biochar blend added. So I think this will be very easy to plant. Last night, both my mom and my sister-in-law were over, and they both said to me, "Why did you buy ginger? I have a whole bunch you could have had." So I will actually probably go get more from them to fill this area out. I didn't realize they were sharing. Well, those plants were not really at all rooted in, which is quite disappointing. They must have just transplanted those. Oh, well, we'll baby them and hope for the best here and hope that this area fills in. I probably will have to go steal some from my mom and my sister-in-law. One of the really lovely parts about working in this area has been enjoying seeing this area come to life this spring. And that's because since this is a sort of shady-ish border, there's a lot of little special woodland plants in there. So let me just show you my view when I was down on the ground there planting that ginger. So look at this little moment right here. This beautiful primula here with I don't know what daffodil that is behind it. That's kind of got a peach center and a yellow outer petals. And then we move up to the great texture of this origami. And all through here are little primula seedlings. There's also some hostas that I see have taken a beating while we've been working here. Back here, we've got the maidenhair ferns just starting to unfurl, which are so charming and beautiful. I mean, these are the things you don't notice unless you slow down in your garden. So it's been a few years since I've had a new spot in the garden to sort of play in. I didn't really do anything new last year. And even though this is a small area, relatively speaking, and just mostly an extension of what's already here, I'm very excited about this area. And actually right now, this is my favorite spot in the garden. It has been so fun to see all of these little things emerge. And really the light over here is so beautiful. Now, of course, that will change. I'm sitting underneath a maple here. This will obviously fill in. There's a beech tree over here. So this will be shadier at some point. But yet there's still a fair, I mean, this maple tree is a little thin these days, so there's still dappled light through here from that. I don't know, I think it's gonna be kind of a special part in the garden, and I'm excited to show it to you for the first time. So I hope you'll keep following along to see where we go next with this garden as I sort of, you know, tied this all in. My goal here is definitely to not have this look like there was an extension made. And I want that to be the case by this year. I want this all to flow and not have it be obvious that this wasn't original from the beginning. All right, thank you for watching. Thanks for coming along. So thank you for watching. Thanks for following along. I always appreciate it. If you enjoy what you're watching, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. And I hope that we will have many more videos in which I'm sitting here enjoying this bench, because I just can see myself kind of hanging out over here. All right, have a great day in your garden. We'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.